Hi, I'm Andi Johnson. I am the Chief Policy Officer with Commerce Lexington. I've been at the Chamber for 13 years now.
And I'm Anthony Allen. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy at Commerce Lexington. And I came on just about a year and a half ago. And Andy was in an effort to expand our policy efforts here at Commerce Lexington. So today we're just kind of starting a new video series, thinking of new ways to communicate with our members and be able to discuss what we do in the policy space and how we can highlight some of our key issues and key leaders in the area.
Yeah, and really the goal is just to give our members a clearer picture of what we're advocating for the business community at the local, state, and federal levels of government. Commerce Lexington's mission is to be an economic driver for the region, and a big part of that work is advocacy and government relations. So we're doing the series just to tell you more about those issues and engagement and how it's impacting not only Lexington, but our 9 county region.
Yeah, so we're going to kick off today with a preview of, it's January. The state legislative session is just started. And so we're going to preview that and some of Commerce Lexington's priorities and some of the variables that we're going to be working around and priorities that the legislature has for the next 60 days.
Yeah, so it's the 60-day session, it's the long session, the budget session. So we've got really 7 key areas that we're working on this session. One of those key issues is tax reform. The General Assembly has taken on tax reform over the last few sessions in an effort to make our state more competitive for businesses and for talent. We have, worked on taking our individual income tax rate down from 6% to 3.5%. Anthony, what do you think? Do you think we're going to see more tax reform this session? Are they going to continue to take the rate down or hold it steady?
So that's a good question, Andy. Since 2018, when the General Assembly started reducing our individual income tax rate, we were at 6% then. And just about every year subsequently since then, only with a couple of years in between, have we not lowered our income tax rate. So the General Assembly works off of a specific formula where they review how much money we have in our budget reserve trust fund. You've probably heard that called the rainy day fund in some instances, but the legislature looks at how much we have saved in that account at the end of a budget year. And then they also use some other metrics to see how much funding we have left over. So in a surplus. So this year, and they didn't meet the mark for last fiscal year to lower the individual income tax rate by another 0.5%. They just lowered it to 3.5%. But if they do decide to vote to lower it again, they would have to bypass some statutory requirements. And from what we've heard, Andy, I think that may not be something that's going to happen this legislative session.
Yeah, they may just hold steady with all that uncertainty that's still on the horizon.
Yeah.
Well, that does impact what the budget looks like, how much money they have to allocate for state agencies for critical projects. 2 years ago, they really did make significant one-time investments in a lot of economic development-oriented projects. So this session, we've got several different projects that we're talking to members about, to leadership, to members of the Central Kentucky Caucus, projects that we really think would have a significant economic impact for Lexington and the region. What would you put at the top of that list? What are some of the things that we're sharing with leaders this session?
So prior to this session, we knew it was going to be an important budget session because last budget session, when the legislature had a large surplus, they invested in a lot of projects. They invested heavily in Louisville and some projects here in Lexington, including the Transformational Housing Partnership, or the Transy project, as some folks have heard. And definitely want to give a shout out to Senator Manamaze Bledsoe and Commerce Lexington, led by Andi, on that process in the last budget. But this budget, Lexington stakeholders came together. We talked to our business members. We talked to, LFUCG and Visit Lex and a lot of the players in this town on what do we think are the most impactful priorities that we should ask for an investment from the General Assembly. So some of those, they focus on economic development, they focus on quality of life, they focus on trying to better our city as a whole, but not just Lexington, but the region,
Hmm.
and to a broader extent, this half of the state, Eastern Kentucky, and the Bluegrass area. So we're looking at three different projects that we've highlighted. Um, the Bluegrass Airport terminal
Hmm.
expansion, that's going to be a big one. They got a big plan for the next 10 years where they've got uh, a big capital project going on there. So they've requested some funding from the General Assembly that we're supporting them on to help kickstart that process. There's also our urban service boundary
Hmm.
area, Area 3, Athens, Boonesboro, Richmond Road exit. There's definitely some development happening there with the Lexington Sporting Club, and there's more developable land there that we're looking at for housing and commercial space. So if we can get some public infrastructure funded from the state, that would help kickstart that process. And then the last one, Andy, I don't know if you want to talk about that, that we've kind of pinpointed is the Lexington Children's Museum.
Right. When we are taking our leadership visits every year to other cities, other communities, one of the quality of life investments that we see in those cities with growth is their investments they're making in having amenities like a children's museum or updated performing arts centers. So this session, we are supporting groups that are advocating for a new children's museum in Lexington and the funding that they need. They've already been successful with raising money from the private sector for that effort, and having some state dollars to help bolster that project would be extremely beneficial. There's also an effort underway to advocate for a new performing arts center in Lexington, which would be another tremendous quality of place amenity that if we could get could continue to take our city to the next level when it comes to those quality of place attributes that we already have in abundance.
And there are multiple projects that LFUCG is leading the way on, trying to request some investments from the state on. And Commerce Lexington, and our policy team's here to help support them in any way we can for those requests. Um, but yeah, we're going to be working through this session, through the budget session. We'll probably see a budget soon from the House, and per the Kentucky Constitution, those start in the House of Representatives. They pass it, and then the Senate looks at the budget as well. So we'll be watching that process over the next coming weeks.
Yeah, and really what we're hearing is that we feel like a lot of those decisions about projects and significant investments is going to come down to the end, to those final days when the General Assembly really understands where they are with revenues to be able to make that determination on how many of those great projects are going to get funded. So we just want to keep the conversation going on those key initiatives and hope that we can help support investments coming back to Lexington and to the region. So one of the other things that we've talked a lot about from a budget standpoint has been a program that's helped get more shovel-ready land for Lexington and the region. The Kentucky Product Development Initiative, called KPDI, has been around for several years, and it was an investment. Well, the General Assembly initially invested $100 million in the program 2 years ago. They put an additional 70 million, and it's meant to support getting more jobs and sites ready for economic development. It's been tremendously successful for the region. More than 18 projects have received funding, and it's really helped us address a critical challenge that we identified through our regional competitiveness plan, which was just the lack of shovel-ready land, lack of inventory for jobs in the region. So we hope to see that program continue to get funding this session as well.
Yeah, KPDI has been a big boon for economic development in this area. And, as Commerce Lexington, it's helped here projects here in Lexington, but to your point, a lot of projects in our region. So as a whole, we've really benefited from this process. It's been funded now for 2 budget cycles, and there's a lot of momentum to continue to fund that
That's
project.
right. And I think the benefit of KPDI was that it helped bring counties together to consider going together on business park projects, much like leaders, our mayor here in Lexington, our LFUCG, and Scott County, the Madison County Fiscal Court, and the city of Berea, because of this program, have worked together to create a regional business park partnership where they are developing sites together, leveraging their resources and leveraging that state funding in partnership to be able to do bigger sites. So it's, again, really helped accelerate partnerships and just getting more sites ready for job creation, which is important as a key priority for us.
And another key priority for Commerce Lexington, in this vein of investments and whatnot, is, would you say, housing? It's another
Yes,
big one.
number one.
Yeah, so housing has been a big topic for us the last two sessions that I've
Hmm.
been here. We talked about it a lot in the 25 session, which was not a budget year, but we tried to have conversations with legislative leaders, talk about the Transy project that we mentioned earlier as a good pilot model for how state funding and a public-private partnership can really help when many entities come together to try to solve the housing situation. But we still have a big housing shortfall in the city and the region. And so um, that's something that we're going to try to keep, continue to look at this legislative session. There's a lot of housing bills going out there. And I don't know if you want to talk about some of those, Andy.
Yeah, I think the housing issue, we all feel it, we all know it, we see it, just affordability and accessibility. It's a statewide issue, but it really is an issue for Lexington and the region. The Kentucky Housing Corporation put out a report in 2024, a statewide analysis of our housing gap. So 200,000 units statewide, but here in Lexington, currently we've got a 22,000 unit gap in both rental and home ownership. So if we're looking to attract and retain more people to Lexington and the region, housing is a critical part of that workforce equation. So we have been working not only locally with our city council on ideas and solutions, but talking to legislators in Frankfurt. Anthony, you've done a great job over the interim getting us in front of the House A&R staff, in front of the housing task force that met over the summer, just to talk about ideas that could be helpful not only for Lexington but for the region. And those really fall into two buckets, I would say: investment tools, things that could help with the financing of infrastructure where government and developers could work in partnership, as well as some of the regulatory barriers, things that are slowing down the process or adding more cost to what it takes to build a home that would be impacting affordability. So, some of the things we've been talking about are more in that investment and regulatory space.
Yeah, and a few of those in the investment space. There's been a few different proposals out there from infrastructure funds, a state loan pool, a public-private partnership between private banks and the state on affordable housing. Some of those regulatory relief measures at the state and local level have been discussed. And, we couldn't do this without our volunteer leaders and membership who really stepped up to provide expertise, but also leadership from a private sector on some of these projects and talking to our legislative leaders. Because when we work together as a community, we're able to lead, as a united front to address some of these issues.
Absolutely. With on the affordable housing side, the Transy project, which some of our members may not know, but that is a project where our affordable housing developers came together with the banks, 5 banks in our community, to work on developing a site together. The banks put up 3 million in private capital, and really what's called a revolving loan fund to purchase land for affordable housing. And they were able to identify some property and work in partnership with Transylvania University on their old baseball field site, 12.5 acres inside the urban service boundary, which was a unicorn property. And the banks purchased the property. The developers have worked on a site plan and have bought that property back from the banks. And it's going to end up creating more than 200 units of affordable housing, both rental, multifamily, and home ownership opportunities on this site, which is significant. So it really does show the power when groups come together, developers, bankers, government partners, to make something happen. And that's really been, I think, used as a pilot project by state legislators of what we could do. And that's the kind of things that they're looking for: what legislation, what investment tools can promote partnerships where you've got government and private sector developers working together to address our housing needs.
Yeah, and as we continue to focus on housing and additional economic development, this is spurring more development, more growth. Um, we need to attract the talent to help fill some of those gaps. As as the city continues to grow, as businesses continue to grow, University of Kentucky is growing. Everybody sees that. We're going to need to attract a lot of talent to the Lexington area, Greater Lex region, and we have our own regional effort going on that Andy's been leading the last few years from a regional competitiveness standpoint. But we're also working with other chambers and trade associations and groups around the state to maybe pull together a state marketing plan for talent attraction. So, Andy, I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit how, what we've done in the Greater Lex initiative and how that kind of builds for a state program.
Yeah, the talent attraction marketing effort is definitely a top priority for us this session. It's been something that we have been talking with the General Assembly about for 2 years now. The importance of telling our story as a state, the opportunities that we have, both from a quality of place and the job opportunities to people outside of Kentucky, with the goal of recruiting them to the state to help meet our job needs. The demographics are the demographics, and the reality is we are facing a demographic shortage of having enough people to fill jobs. And so we definitely need to work on our retention efforts, keeping people here. But the reality is we're going to have to pull people from the outside with the skills needed to meet employer needs. So you're seeing other states investing in talent attraction. We see that this is a competitive game of selling yourself as a state. And so states like Michigan and Florida and Ohio are already making these investments. So we've been encouraging the General Assembly to invest in talent attraction marketing in much the same way that we already market to visitors for tourism, and the way economic development already markets the state to site selectors and businesses. So it would just be the third leg of the stool to tell our story to people about why they should come to Kentucky to live and work. And we really feel like we've got a lot of good things to sell. And the General Assembly did hire a marketing consultant to come in and create that strategy and do that research and that plan of what we should be selling, what would be our target audiences, and how much we should be spending. So we have been utilizing that data in our advocacy push. And what the data has found is that we have tremendous quality of place strengths that we need to leverage. We've got the job opportunities. People just don't know about it, especially our college students that are here. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from that initial research was the fact that 96% of our college students want to stay in Kentucky if they could find a job. So we've got to make those connections sooner. And part of that is just marketing and letting them know about the opportunities that are here.
That's right. It's a big part of our talent attraction is that folks are coming to the university from across the state, but they're also coming from out of state. And they like, what they see here in Lexington, all of these different types of requests that we're talking about, housing and quality of life and infrastructure, talent attraction, they all kind of play together and work together to make Lexington a better place to live and locate to. That talent attraction has been a big part of our push the last couple of sessions. We have some great partners across the state. GLI, Greater Louisville Inc. is our counterpart in Louisville, Northern Kentucky Chamber, Kentucky SOAR in Eastern Kentucky, Bowling Green and the Paducah and Owensboro chambers. So we've had partners across the state who have really tried to say, hey, our region may be different than Greater Lex or the Bluegrass area, but we still have the same issue. And I think creating an umbrella program that, covers the whole state and is able to market the state as a whole would help all of us.
Absolutely. And once again, I think the Lexington region through our Greater Lex talent attraction campaign is being viewed as a pilot or a model of how this could work statewide. We've recently launched our lookatlex.com website, which is a talent attraction website for the 9-county region, 30 pages of live, work, play content. That's really that digital entry point into what those quality of place and job opportunities would be. And we've been marketing that website to alumni of our 10 colleges and universities right here in the Greater Lex region. And in the first year of the campaign, we've had over 60,000 people visiting that website, interested in getting more information about the region. And it's, that type of return on investment story that we'll be sharing with legislators, because we hope to replicate that same type of effort at the state level as well. And anything that happens at the state level will only continue to get more eyeballs, more awareness on the Greater Lex region too. So it really is a rising tide lifts all boats, and we're seeing that with the coalition that the regions across the state recognize that as well. So we're hopeful that that will be funded this session.
And, a lot of people ask, what does the chamber do? What do we do in the policy space in the chamber? And Andy's favorite word is being a convener. And so I think a lot of that is a lot of what we're doing. Folks understand that we just bring people together to try to focus on priorities that impact all of our sectors, the business sector, the community, and that's what we've been working on. And we've got a long way of the session to go. I think we're at we're definitely like 50 or less days left in the legislative session. So we still have a lot of time to be working on some of these priorities. It's going to be an up and down process, but we're paying very close attention to that, to what's going on at the local level with our council, what's going on in Washington with our federal delegation. All of these are important to track, but this is a good way to start things off and kind of talk about what's important to Commerce Lexington and what we're doing for you all.
Absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to the 60-day session.
That's right.
So we're just spending the next few weeks connecting with members of leadership, our Central Kentucky caucus members, letting them know about these priority issues, understanding what's important to them, trying to get a sense of what's going to get traction and momentum, and doing our best to represent our members throughout that process. But we're getting input from our policy council members, from our board leaders on the positions that we need to take throughout the session. So our goal is just to make sure that the Lexington and the Greater Lex regional business community is represented at the table, has a voice. So if anyone has questions or comments or any things that we need to be focused on, or we're happy to answer those questions. We're available to our members anytime.